Yonko 海軍本部、そして七部会、この三大勢力によってこれまで世界の平穏は保たれていた。
Can the Warlords defeat any Yonko crew? It may sound crazy to put 12 people up against thousands of soldiers and commanders, but trust me, most of these matchups will surprise you. Yet of course, I can't cover this monumental task alone, so I enlisted the help of a fellow traveler.
Yo, what's good everybody? Lower Stone here, and thanks for having me on the channel, Shaddix.
Today we'll be putting all the Warlords into one crew to see if they can hang with the best. No subordinates, no extra armies, only the main 12 goons versus the full force of an emperor. Before that, I need to lay out some rules. Skip to this time if you just want the analysis.
Fuck you.
1. I'm taking each character when they were warlords. For example, I don't care about what Law did to Big Mom, I only care about his feats from Dressrosa. So no Yonko, Blackbeard, Prime Moria, and yes, Alabasta Crocodile. 2. The Warlords have D3 teamwork. It's important because the narrator literally said they would never work together. Letting each other die makes none of these scenarios work. They are united by the common goal of surviving as a group. 3. No morals, because if we had them, 3 of the Warlords would switch sides while fighting the Strawhats. 4. I get to pick the location of each battle because it's my video. Now the question is, how powerful are the Shichibukai? I'm about to cover 12 fan favorite characters, which will piss a bunch of people off. So I have vids on all these characters, Yonko crews as well, if you want in-depth reasoning. I needed to preface this so I don't get comments like, "No way Weevil is that strong!" But okay, how powerful is he? Exactly, you don't fucking know or are gonna give some vague answer like YC2, to which someone else in the comments is gonna say, actually, he's a YC3. If I take time to speculate on how powerful these characters are, we will be here till the end of the series. Bear with the assumptions I make. Starting on the captain, Mihawk. Pretty self-explanatory, his job is to match the emperors themselves even if he can't beat them, because a fight between Hawkeyes and any of the Yonko is extreme diff. Usually. Next are his wings, Blackbeard/Weevil. No way! What about these two? Yeah, shut up. Yami Fruit Blackbeard was able to defeat Ace. Ace is low end relative to the admirals, being able to react to them just like Marco did. Plus was able to put up a good fight against Whitebeard. Peach himself was able to fight Sengoku with his crew. While he did have the Gura Fruit, the point is he was physically strong enough to withstand attacks on said level, which only adds to the idea Yami Blackbeard is on that Marco-ish tier. Weevil should be the same. His goal is to defeat characters like Marco, plus he survived in the New World by himself without hiding. This is a feat none of the worst generation could perform, yet Weevil did it for 2 years. Kizaru himself stated he was tremendously powerful, so yeah. After a huge gap, our next 4 are Boa, Jinbei, Hanafuda, and Dofi. All of them are on the same level as the 9 Scabbards. Yes, even these 2. I have multiple videos explaining this. Whenever I say Scabbards level, people automatically assume the worst. That's not true. Not only are these guys able to fight with commanders, but they also have crazy abilities to help their effort. Specifically, Conqueror's Haki. Each Yonko has at most 2 King's Haki users. The Shichibukai have 3. Mihawk is greater than Shanks, who has comparable Haki to Joy Boy, meaning he should be able to knock out all members of any crew that are weaker than a Vice Admiral. Basically everyone besides the top officers. However, Mihawk will be too occupied by the Emperor themselves to do that. You can't say the same for Boa or Dofi. Even if one of them gets into a Conqueror's Clash, the other is free to use it. Keep in mind, both of them are stronger than Timeskip Base Luffy, who knocked out 50,000 people on Fishman Island. An invaluable asset, though due to the nature of Conqueror's Haki, it will only work once. Even so, Boa and Doflamingo have the deadliest / most versatile moveset on the crew. After those 4 is Law. Law is low end relative to Dofi, being around the level of a Toby Roppo member in Dressrosa. Yet his powers can affect people much greater than him. Lastly are the fodders, Kuma, Moria, Buggy, and Crocodile. Kuma is a pacifista with a devil fruit. That's it. The PX units are direct clones of him. They lose to any notable figure in the New World. No, catching Saturn off guard and barely dodging a Kainu don't mean anything. Unless you think near-death Kuma is Admiral level top 20 in the verse, which makes no sense because why aren't the pacifistas the same? On top of this, Kuma thought Luffy's damage from Thriller Bark could knock him out. Guess who doesn't get knocked out from this? Zoro! Not saying Zoro could beat him, plus the thought could just be hyperbole, but the fact still stands that Kuma thought Thriller Bark level attacks could do significant damage to him. Speaking of, Moria is portrayed to be equal to Kuma, being relatively above Gear 2 Luffy. After him are these two. Buggy's Muggy Ball did more damage to a Minotaur guard than Gear 2 Luffy. He can tank his own attack. You know who can't tank a Gear 2 attack? Yeah, this guy. I just want you to sit with that. Despite these four being at the bottom of the barrel, they will be good for crowd control. Kuma has explosions / BFR attacks, Moria turns corpses into allies, Crocodile is the weakest, however he's stronger than Alabasta Zoro, who could defeat 100 men easily, not even counting his Logia abilities. I hope you can see now, the Shichibukai are easily Yonko crew material and can mitigate the numbers advantage. Finally, onto the actual video.
The Whitebeard Pirates were stated to be the most powerful crew before the Summit War. Over 1,500 members and 16 top commanders headed by the strongest man in the world. In fact, the Ace novel states Whitebeard had a force of tens of thousands. This puts his overall manpower to at least 20,000, the majority of it being made up of the 43 allied pirate crews. But if that full force were to meet the Warlords at Marineford uninhabited, what would really happen? Well, the Yonko would begin by trying to buster call the entire island and make tsunamis. However, the Warlords can defend against this. Not only can Mihawk cut through the waves, but all of them can react to cannonballs. By the time that's happened, Jinbei is already in the water, deleting multiple ships. The fleet has no reliable fishmen to counter him. Newgate could possibly try to swat him out of the water with the quick fruit, yet it won't work when Mihawk pressures him using ranged slashes Jojo wouldn't be able to react to or would just get cut by for anyone who's going to bring that up. In addition, Law has already cast an island-sized room to destroy more ships. Kuma could theoretically teleport his team over as well, after which it becomes a ground game. Of the crew who do make it to land, half of them will be KO'd by either Boa or Dofi's Conqueror's Haki. This means Whitebeard's forces is taken down by thousands, if not already 10,000. Now we get to the last three flashpoints: the fodder, the commander battles, and Whitebeard versus Mihawk. During Marineford, we actually saw a group of foot soldiers take down a pacifista together, but that probably won't happen to Kuma or Moria. Crocodile or Buggy are up for grabs, especially since they are surrounded by thousands of people at this point, plus Oars too, by the way. While said battles are raging, the top warlords are trying to fight Whitebeard's top commanders, and it doesn't look good. Yes, Blackbeard and Weevil are a match for Marco and Jozu, but that still leaves Vista, who was on the same level. Now it's a 3v2, and Marco is there to heal everyone. This is where the fun begins though, because Ace is on the same level as those guys. He claps the last 5 warlords. Ace scales to Marco, who can scale to Hybrid Kaido, supported by the fact that he can not only beat King and Queen, but fought Big Mom before that. If Ace is on par with at least base Kaido, then he squad wipes Boa's team just like the Scabbards got done. It's that simple. Yes, they can try teamwork, however, it doesn't matter when the opponent is just overwhelmingly faster. Yet even if we do give them this, or say Dofi or Law cook up a strategy, it still leaves the other division commanders, such as Izo, who is actually Scabbard level. He claps Dressrosa Law just like Dofi did. There's also a commander named Speed Jiru, who is stated to be the fastest in the crew. That makes him faster than Marco. I am not joking, it is a real statement. Finally, the main event of Mihawk versus Whitebeard. Newgate starts out greater, being the strongest man, though as we've seen in Marineford, it won't last. When away from his medical equipment, his body and Haki deteriorates, observation is worsened, Conquerors is worsened, then when he loses advanced Conquerors Haki, is Mihawk's time to strike. ACOG is just an insane overall stat boost, so when it's gone, the power to match the other Yonko is as well. Then Mihawk wins with mid difficulty, letting him assist the rest of the crew. When exactly will this decline happen though? We've seen Whitebeard be off his medication, but we don't know exactly for how long. Will it happen hours to the battle or minutes? Can Mihawk escape the fight fast enough to assist the mid-tier warlords? Can said warlords even last long enough? Probably not. If we're being real about the commander matchups, they would win in less than an hour. Ace would go his absolute hardest to go help the other members, after which Weevil and Teach are destroyed in at least a 2-on-4. The 4 fodders would just get one shot by Izo, I'm not joking. Finally, the vast Whitebeard Pirates gang up on Mihawk, unless you think Hawkeyes can defeat an Admiral level Whitebeard, 5 top commanders, one of whom is unkillable by normal means and is healing all the others, then the Shichibukai lose this round.
The Red Hair Pirates are most likely the second strongest Yonko crew in the series, captained by red-haired Shanks, one of the greatest Conquerors Haki users of all time. Of course, there's the main 10 members in addition to their allies. These allies are weaker and less numerous than Whitebeard's, though that doesn't really matter for this scenario. So if the Warlords start outside of Elbaf uninhabited, just like Captain Kidd, what would happen? The fight starts and their dinghy ship is gone. Yasop has already sniped his target, of which he never misses. After this, the Shichibukai scramble to save the fruit users. They have Jinbei, but he won't be able to carry everyone. Fortunately, Dofi is already flying into the air, picking up his allies using string. Beforehand, Mihawk will have blasted off the ship with Shanks blasting off the shore of Elbaf to meet in the middle, a fight probably turning into Dragon Ball Z piece. If Jinbei could pass other members up to Dofi like how he threw Zoro, they could coordinate a strategy with Kuma to teleport everyone to the island. If the plan is successful, then it turns into a war. There is a version of this where Yasop snipes all the warlords from a distance. He has Future Sight scaling to Van Augur, who shot birds from miles away back in Jaya, though let's just assume the crew could react to these shots since they would be from quite far away, not emulating Yasop's actual combat speed. Now when getting to the shore, it doesn't look any better. The major contention here is Shanks' crew. Obviously Mihawk beats Shanks, however said fight would take hours, possibly days. Unlike Whitebeard, Red Hair is not getting some major nerf. The rest of the warlords must fend for themselves. You could reasonably say most of the allies are KO'd by King's Haki since, again, weaker than Whitebeard's men. Yet even if all of them do, that still leaves the most balanced crew in the world. Ben Beckman is stated plus portrayed multiple times to be on par with admirals. He is destroying Blackbeard and Weevil in a 2v1. Again, they are low end relative to the admirals, only being able to react to them. We don't know much about the rest of Shanks' crew, however we do know it doesn't have any soft targets, a statement that wasn't given to any other Yonko crew. You could use it to say they're all in those high tier ranges. The warlords have multiple high tiers as well, but 4 trash members. From there it's just simple math, 10 high tier fighters versus 8 plus 4 shitters. One of the 10 being able to defeat 2 warlords at once, and that's not even counting higher interpretations of the others, like Yasop having better observation than Beckman, or Lucky Roo being the fastest in the group as a parallel to Sanji. On top of all said, the Red Hair Pirates have a lead from a strategy aspect as they started with the advantage, with them most likely having info on each warlord's abilities as well. I'm not seeing any scenario where the Shichibukai take this victory, especially when we give Shanks' crew their best interpretations. The Big Mom Pirates are without a doubt the largest crew we've seen in the series, their numbers being calculated to over 100,000 troops. In addition are her 85 children, most of which are officers with different powers and abilities. So if the warlords spawned into the midst of Whole Cake Island itself, what would happen? By this point, Big Mom has mustered her full force on the island, including the top 3 commanders, yet there are still tens of thousands on their way from other parts of her territory. I want to preface this section by saying the warlords slam Linlin's crew no matter what I say next. However, let me explain why Mihawk can solo the Big Mom Pirates. Yes, the entire crew, their captain included. So let's start there. Mihawk is on the same tier as Shanks, Kaido, Luffy, and Kizaru. If you think I'm being biased, no, all of them can do this. Kizaru shows us the gap from Gear 4 to 5 when he blitzes and one-shots Snake Man, as well as reacts to all of his attacks without even sweating. This is important because Kaido literally states Big Mom is weaker than Gear 4. No, fighting a suppressed Kaido for 3 days doesn't mean anything. Contrary to popular belief, Big Mom has no feats putting her equal to full power Kaido. In fact, she only has anti-feats as she couldn't put down Kid or Law, let alone the swordsman who's stronger than the guy who basically one-shot Kid and Law. So now that I've established Hawkeye's to be far greater than Linlin, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Instead of Mihawk easily blitzing, let's say she can at least react a few times. So how does her family pitch in? None of the homies matter because the strongest one she ever made got insta-killed by Law. Katakuri is the next best member of the Big Mom Pirates. He gets put down by a normal swing. Cat is as fast as the rooftop fighters due to his speed being equal to that Gear 4 Luffy. However, endurance and attack power are not his strong suit. His greatest haki was overpowered by Bounce Man Luffy. Said version had weaker attack power than the Scabbards, as they were actually able to hurt Kaido. He also has far less endurance than Luffy, who got one shot by base Kaido. The same attack all the rooftop fighters take easily. Meanwhile, Mihawk's rival is one-shotting 2 of those fighters with an attack that's implied to be a casual usage. Katakuri is going to step in to protect his mother only to get insta-clapped by an exponentially faster and more powerful Mihawk. It doesn't matter that he has Future Sight because it can be blitzed if the speed gap is far enough. The rest of the crew is a domino effect. Smoothie is far slower than Katakuri. I know someone will mention Crackers Biscuits, but those were getting one shot by Gear 4 Whole Cake Island Luffy who again has less AP than the Scabbards. There is honestly nothing any singular Big Mom pirate could do. None of them besides the captain give significant damage to Mihawk or even touch him in the first place. Their best option is teamwork, yet whatever strategy they use better end with either stabbing or shooting him in the head. Unlikely considering Mihawk is a master of armament hockey and can cut his way out of any restraints they place him in. This is all not even counting Conqueror's hockey. Hawkeye could easily overpower Big Mom's blast, as King's hockey is based on personal growth, and I have already proven why Mihawk is much stronger than her. Then he could potentially KO every member of the crew besides the very top officers. Let's disregard that though. He still has insane AoE attacks. He showed this in Marineford even though the attack was so slow, Gear 2 pre-time skip Luffy could react to it. Then Dressrosa Zoro cuts mountains in half, barely breaking a sweat. Mihawk could literally swing in one direction, tens of thousands of troops are gone, let alone if he decides to do something like this. So yeah, the strongest swordsman solos the Big Mom Pirates with at least high difficulty. Then no matter what I just said for the past 2 minutes, the Shichibukai win regardless.
Headed by the strongest creature, the Beast Pirates were claimed to be the greatest military in the world. Kaido has 20,000 normal troops, including 500 Smile Fruit users and 10 Number Giants, the size of oars, all which were led by the 6 Tobiropo members, and Apu, who was basically the 7th, as well as the top 3 Calamities. These forces were located in the small island of Onigashima for a festival, so if the Warlords crashed into the middle of it, just like the Strawhats, what exactly would happen? Unlike the other scenarios, there's no preamble, neither side has any crazy plan to enact besides Law placing a room and one of the members using Conqueror's Hockey. Said Hockey Blast could again just knock out half of Kaido's forces, though it would only be the fodder foot soldiers, not the gifters or anyone above. This is unless the Hockey comes from Mihawk, but by that point, Kaido would have already engaged him by shooting a blast breath. It would probably be in both of their best interest to have the 1v1 on the roof in order to not jeopardize their allies. From there, it just gets into the individual matchups of which the Warlords have the advantage. Blackbeard or Weevil are both as strong as Marco, who was already 2v1ing Kaido's top commanders. King and Queen can subvert this by flying or staying on the balcony to fire projectiles. Though Kuma could teleport Blackbeard up to Queen, the fights are lasting dozens of minutes at most. Jack or the Tobiropo don't fare any better. Due to them having no range techniques, they would be forced to engage the Warlords on the main floor. Keep in mind, Jinbei, Dofi, Boa, and Hanafuda are all as strong as Luffy, who was 2v1ing Ulti and Page 1. This is supported by the fact that Jinbei defeated Who's Who with mid difficulty. So all 4 of these dudes are at least worth 2 Tobiropo members, which allows Boa to deal with Jack. Jack is on the same tier as the Scabbards like the mid-tier Warlords. However, Hancock's insanely deadly moveset could two-shot him by kicking him into stone, even if she herself gets hit in the process. This leaves Apu, who does have good range options using his sound abilities. Said powers could possibly target anyone in Onigashima by using the speaker system, but we also have to account for Law. Trafalgar can also target anyone in Onigashima or just teleport to Apu's location. Now the fodder crew members do have to worry about the numbers, gifters, plus Hawkins. Considering the fact that these forces are stronger than Whitebeard's allies who could already take down the Pacifista, it doesn't look good, yet Weevil is still on the floor. He hasn't left and can easily wipe out multiple targets with just a raw swing. At the end that leaves King, he has 2 options. Help Queen against Blackbeard in a fight they can't win, or assist on the main floor in a battle they also can't win. It doesn't really matter that he's invincible. In either scenario, he would eventually have to use his Flame Off mode, in which case Blackbeard or Weevil are fast enough to tag him. Pre-King of Hell Zoro could already react to Flames off speed. Flames on King had equal speed to him, yet couldn't react to Marco. I don't have to cover Mihawk versus Kaido all too much. Said fight will rage on for so long, the Warlords would have already mopped the floor with the Beast Pirates. Even if you say they're weakened when helping Hawkeyes, Moria could literally revive Kaido's entire crew. A very poetic twist of revenge, so the Shichibukai take yet another W. Also, Yamato was never a part of the Beast Pirates as stated in her Vivi card. Davy D. Teach took Whitebeard's place as one of the most powerful pirates in the world. His crew contains multiple infamous criminals who are amped by Devil Fruit abilities on top of a former Navy admiral. We have no clue on the exact number of Blackbeard's forces, though if the Warlords invaded Hachinosu similarly to Garp, they would deal with an endless torrent of pirates in his own words. Now there's 2 ways we can honestly do this, either exclude Blackbeard from the Warlord side or just have an Echo Fighter. Either way, the Shichibukai take the L here. I'm sure you can already guess why. It doesn't really matter how strong Mihawk is, he can't beat 2 top tiers by himself. Yes, Blackbeard is on this level. He's already has top tier feats of just being able to tank Shock Will, and I highly doubt he would let someone on his crew who could just one-shot him. Mandatory Blackbeard video plug for Shaddix and myself, by the way.
Bro, what the fuck?
So yeah, Mihawk probably gets mid-diff by 2 characters just as great as him, leaving them free to crush his crew. If that already hasn't happened yet, the 3rd strongest member of Teach's group is Shiryu. The swordsman was applied to be a threat to Yami Fruit Blackbeard, as well as a future Zoro opponent, so him being on Marco's tier where Zoro isn't really far-fetched. The rest of the crew is unscalable right now. However, the senior members were able to take attacks from Ace. Ace has the same amount of attack power as the Rooftop Fighters, those same people who can one-tap Tobiropo members. Considering that the Blackbeard Pirates are most likely future Straw Hat matchups, it isn't weird to say that they would be in the next tier up, which is where the mid-tier Warlords would be. At that point, it's the same issue they had with the Red-Haired Pirates. We can try to bank on them having insane abilities, yet Teach's crew does as well. Doc Yu can create diseases, Pizarro is the literal island, and Augur is a top-tier sniper with teleportation. Then King's Hockey doesn't play a factor as well since Teach's crew won't lose anyone important. Regardless, he and Kuzan would defeat Hawkeyes with mid difficulty, leaving the rest of the crew helpless, or one of them could just match Mihawk while the other just claps the crew by themselves. Very simple L here, even if we include Yami Blackbeard on the Warlord side. Finally, the Straw Hats are self-explanatory: 9 main officers in a 5,600 membered fleet, captained by 7 subordinate crews. Not even counting the main character himself, if these forces were to pull up to the Warlords on an uninhabited egghead, what happens? There are multiple ways we can do the Jinbei situation, but we're going to be generous by giving him over to the Straw Hats, because nothing honestly changes, and I'll explain why. Now, clearly a sea bombardment won't work for all the reasons listed in the Whitebeard section, so the remaining fleet engages the Warlords on the ground. I think it's best we go through the scenario from bottom to top. The lowest Warlords are actually getting destroyed. Usopp and Nami could deadass beat Kuma or Moria. By Wano, they are fighting characters much more powerful than anything in pre-time skip, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because Usopp and Nami are not as cool as Kuma, that still leaves the allied captains. Due to their performance against Coliseum Luffy, we can tell Cavendish, Barto, Sai, and Io are all greater than a pacifista. Buggy gets shocked by Nami, Cavendish has Haki to one-tap Crocodile, the rest can just team up on Moria. Then even if you love Kuma so much, he's getting destroyed by Hakuba, who can perception blitz all these people. However, I cannot say the same for the mid-tier members. Robin, Brook, Chopper, and Frankie all get bodied, even with Jinbei leading them. I already discussed how the middle Warlords do against the Tobiropo. It's the same here. Honestly, Law could probably beat these 4 using his insane hacks. Then Boa versus Jinbei is just a wash. Even though Boa is on the same level, her abilities are way too dangerous. Now onto the high tier Straw Hats, Zoro and Sanji versus Blackbeard or Weevil. King of Hell Zoro could probably beat Blackbeard. Not only does he have more utilities like range attacks, Duraneg, and being a non-fruit user, but he could possibly stack his Ashra form as well. Sanji versus Weevil is interesting. The Cook can blitz him with his speed mode. Yes, I said speed mode because this is not Sanji's actual speed, but once he loses it, Weevil will have the upper hand, yet his Viva card states his legs are a weakness. Sanji can exploit this, especially since he is far more intelligent than the Warlord. Still though, I say this is a high diff fight. Finally, Luffy versus Mihawk, and yeah, no. Regardless of what you think, even when Luffy takes away Mihawk's quote-unquote paint, he's just gonna run out of stamina. There's just a plague in the Luffy community, which is already a biohazard in itself. Basically, the idea is that Elbaf Luffy has no drawbacks from Gear 5. However, what these people don't understand is that the form's real drawback is most likely based on the amount of time or how he uses it. Luffy recovered from the Lucci fight in at most a minute. It takes a page for him to regen. We get an exact time frame. Yet against Kizaru, it most likely took at least 5. About 2.5 chapters of the real-time story, and a lot takes place. Luffy gets knocked, Bonnie has a small scuffle with Saturn, he monologues to her for 10 pages, Kuma comes in to save them, knocking Saturn multiple buildings away. Saturn returns, to which they defend Kuma. The heroes escape to the subway while Saturn argues with Vegapunk for 5 pages, all while Luffy is eating food, by the way, so his unassisted recovery would be slower. In Elbaf, the 2 instances where people say Luffy doesn't have stamina issues are when he uses it for less than 10 seconds against an irrelevant giant snake and Gabon. So no, this idea that Elbaf Luffy can just use Gear 5 with no drawbacks is false. Then, unlike Kaido or Kizaru, Mihawk will not spare Luffy recovery time. This will lead to a mildly difficult victory. It doesn't really matter what Luffy does to Mihawk during the Gear 5 phase because he has the endurance to withstand those attacks like Kaido did. That's not even taking the interpretation that Mihawk will edge Luffy out in speed just like Kaido was too. In summary, the Strawhats can manage the low tier Chichibukai, though the mid tier Warlords wash them pretty easily. The high tier Warlords go equal with Zoro and Sanji. Meanwhile, Mihawk has already killed Luffy, ready to no-diff anyone who's left. If we're being honest, the Strawhats really can't hang. Their crew balance is really ass, as shown by the Elbaf situation. Yet another W for the 7 Warlords.
So obviously there's no point in talking about Cross Guild. However, I want to go over how this video could happen in the actual story, because by the end of One Piece, Cross Guild could very well be a compilation of many Warlords of the Sea. Let's get the big one out of the way. Oda loves to bring characters back into the concurrent story. All the Warlords are fan favorites. The guild is the easiest way to make this happen, as anyone can join at any time. In addition, Croc and Mihawk's main goal at this point is to gather a military force. Almost all former Warlords fit this bill. Moria and Law have nowhere else to go. Weevil is en route to Impel Down with Dofi already there. Keep in mind, Buggy was attributed for orchestrating the mass breakout, so who's to say he couldn't do it again? Boa also needs protection, however this is the least likely option as she probably just joins Luffy. The narrative threads don't end there. Cross Guild is portrayed as a circus led by a clown. Circuses often involve animals, which is the main theme of the Warlords. Finally, this crew could have some connections to the Rocks Pirates. Cross Guild could be another large group with opposing personalities, none of which are swearing allegiance to anyone and are all in it for their own personal gain. Then by the end of the series, the alliance will shatter just like the Rocks Pirates. But that's just me. I would love to hear what you guys think. Bye!